Bill Gaither, one of the most important people in gospel music, was born on March 28, 1936 in Alexandria, Indiana. His childhood shaped his love of music and faith. Bill Gaither grew up in a small town full of love, faith, and a deep love for music. His early years were marked by the warmth of a close-knit family and the values that his parents, George and Layla Gaither, taught him. From a very young age, Bill was surrounded by the sounds of gospel hymns and Southern gospel quartets. Bill played a big role in shaping his musical tastes. His parents were devout Christians and active members of their local church, where music was an important part of prayer services. As a child growing up in the Midwest, Bill was drawn to the sounds of church bands and gospel groups. He quickly fell deeply in love with singing and writing songs. Bill's childhood was simple but enjoyable. He spent his days playing with friends in the fields, doing chores around the house, and going to church. Bill's first experience with music came from his mother, who played the piano and sang hymns around the house. As he got older, he would sit next to her and listen intently while trying to sing along. Growing up in a small town gave him a strong sense of community, where neighbors helped each other and faith was an important part of daily life. This environment fueled his love for gospel music and gave him the foundation he would later build his career on. Bill's parents saw his talent and pushed him to improve it. By the time he was a teenager, he was playing the piano and writing songs. In high school, he formed his first gospel quartet with some classmates. They would get together after school to work on their harmony and perform at churches and community events. It was during this time that Bill realized music could be more than just entertainment. It could also inspire people and bring them closer together. Even though he loved music, his ability to write moving melodies and words that touched people's hearts set him apart at a young age. After graduating from high school, Bill went to Anderson College, which is now Anderson University, in Indiana to study English and education. His parents had always stressed how important education was, and Bill thought that teaching would give him stability, so he became a high school English teacher, a job he liked because it let him connect with students. But even though he was teaching, his love for gospel music never went away. He kept writing songs and performing with gospel groups. In the late 1950s, he formed the Bill Gaither Trio with his brother Danny Gaither and sister Moran. They played at local churches and small gospel gatherings, slowly becoming known for their moving performances and uplifting harmonies. Bill's strong Christian background and the role that gospel music played in his home as a child, Bill Gaither's early years instilled in him a deep love for faith-based music, which would later lead him to write some of the most beloved gospel songs of all time. The lessons he learned as a child in a small town in Indiana about the importance of faith, family, and persistence shaped not only his music, but also the man he became. Bill Gaither had spent his whole life surrounded by music, faith, and friendships that went beyond music. Just working together professionally, he had built his career not only by writing and performing religious songs, but also by bringing together a group of people who supported each other in music and in life. Jake Hess was one of those closest to him, Ralph Bunch and George Younce. These people were not just co-workers or artists, they were his closest friends and kindred spirits who shared his desire to spread the gospel through music. They had traveled, sung, prayed, and walked through both seasons of joy and trouble. Bill had been with them all the time, but nothing could have prepared him for the heartbreak of losing them all so quickly. The first blow came in January 2004 when Jake Hess died. Jake wasn't just a famous gospel singer. He was also Bill's teacher, father figure, and source of inspiration throughout his life. Jake had a unique style of singing that made every word of a song feel very personal. Bill often said that Jay was one of the reasons he fell in love with gospel music in the first place. When they first met, there was an unspoken understanding and mutual respect between them that grew into a close relationship. Bill could still hear Jake's warm, clear voice in his head, telling stories from the road, making jokes, or giving him words of support. Over the years, Jake had many health problems, and Bill had both admired and felt saddened as his friend faced each one with unshakable faith. Bill went to see him a lot in his last few months, enjoying every moment they had together. When they heard Jake had died, Bill felt like time had stopped when he was sitting at the piano playing the songs they had sung together in the past. The music helped him deal with his sadness at Jake's funeral. Bill was one of the many people whose lives had been changed by his friend's voice. As they sang peaceful hymns, he fought to hold back tears as he thought about the man who had shaped his musical career. Journey was gone, and the world was quieter without him. When tragedy struck again in April 2005, Bill was still coming to terms with Jake's death. The beloved bass singer George Younce died after years of getting worse. George was one of the happiest and most charismatic people Bill had ever met. His deep, resonant voice had filled the cathedrals and later became a cornerstone of the Gaither homecoming family. But George was also a man of kindness, humor, and unwavering faith. He made everyone around him feel special, and Bill had spent countless hours laughing at his jokes, eating with him, and talking about life, music, and faith while watching George's health deteriorate had been very painful. As he sat at George's funeral, surrounded by grieving friends and family, Bill had visited him many times to offer prayers and words of comfort, knowing that the end was near. But nothing could have prepared him for the final goodbye. As he thought about all the times they had spent together on stage, backstage, and on long bus rides where they would talk about the good old days and dream about the future, George had been a rock for so many people, and now that rock was gone. The weight of the loss was almost too much to bear. Heavy for Bill to bear. Just when he thought his heart could not take any more pain, December 2005 dealt him another crushing blow. Vestal Goodman, the queen of gospel music, died suddenly, leaving a hole that could never be filled. If George had been their leader and Jake had been their mentor, Vestal was the soul. Her voice, which was both powerful and tender, could shake any church and bring tears to even the toughest soul. But it wasn't just her voice, it was her presence. Vestal had a bigger-than-life personality. Vestal had a personality that made people feel like they were in a loving embrace. She called everyone darling and made them feel like they were the most important person in the world. Bill had always admired how strong and graceful she was. She had been through hard times in her life, but she never lost her faith, stopped singing, or stopped loving people. It seemed unfair and unreal that she had died so quickly. Bill found himself listening to old performances of her singing Hurting through songs like God on the Mountain and What a Beautiful Name It Is. He missed her laugh, her wisdom, and her unshakable faith in the healing power of music. Jake, George, and Vestal both felt like they were losing parts of themselves in such a short amount of time. More than just music, the homecoming family was about the close bonds they had made and how they had helped each other through good times and bad. Now that three of its brightest stars had died, Bill found comfort in his faith, knowing that they were singing in a better place and that Bill took his grief and turned it into his work in the months and years that followed. He knew that the best way to honor his friends was to carry on the mission they had all believed in so deeply. Every time he stepped on stage, he carried their memory with him, and every time he sang one of their favorite songs, he could almost hear their voices joining in. He found comfort in knowing that their legacy lived on, not only in the recordings they had made, but in the many lives they had touched. As time went on, the pain of loss faded and was replaced by thankfulness for the years they had spent together. Bill continued to lead the annual homecoming gatherings, making sure that the spirit of his dear friends lived on in every performance, even though the world had lost them. Jake Hess, Ralph Bunch, and George Younce. Their voices would always be heard because they left a legacy of faith, music, and love that Bill was determined to take on as long as he lived. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Help with, please like and write below if you liked the video. I'd love to hear what you think. See you in the next video.